Right. This is the day after the day after. So yesterday, no lessons yesterday. So it was just drawing most of the day. Some that I recorded, some that I didn't. So, and today's lessons, just one lesson tonight. And so I spend quite a bit of time getting the right image for us to draw. And the thing about looking for references is that you can't do it with a specific thing in mind, because invariably you won't find it. And more specific you become, it must be standing, sitting, whatever, lit this way, lit that way, male, female, whatever. The less likely you are to find a decent image, because the things, you have to have so many things, not least of all it well lit. So I just basically get into a kind of a trance, if you like, a sort of robot mode, and just go through images and images. And if you go through Unsplash or Pexels, you'll see there are, I don't know, there must be millions of images. And it's just one will speak to you, one or two or three will speak to you. And then you get into a kind of a rhythm with it, and more look appropriate. Anyway, tonight's image will be I try and alternate them, so it's going to be a female. But I found this image, and I could probably save this for Friday. But sometimes the images are so good, you just want to draw it. You get compelled to draw something, which is, I suppose, that's the natural state for artists. They're going to be moved to that at that one moment. I know this is images, I know this is photographs and all that stuff, but we're not. You don't always have the luxury of having a model and all the rest of it. Not when you want to do it, and you want to do it all the time. Imagine yesterday there were 5-6 drawings that I did yesterday. That's 6 models, and it's not feasible, is it? Really not feasible. So, and I've got no hang-ups about working from life or working from photographs. Anyway, I think it's just a load of snobbery that people think that it's the only way to do it. People won't even brag about the fact they only work from life. And no, for us normals, it's just not a reality. Anyway, so this face is a great face. You can just about see it there. What a great face. Nearly black and white. I know I say that about black and white, but there are some mid-tones in it. It's more of a sepia thing, so it's kept some of its. The reason why they did, apart from the fact it was a chemical restriction, but sepia toned had that extra layer of tonality, where black and white was stripped away. So it was a warmer thing, a warmer feel to the photograph. And this is virtually a sepia. So some of the mid-tones are still there. They haven't been eradicated by the desaturation process. So so as I say, after yesterday of doing it's funny. This is the paper that this was done on last night. So by mistake, I often said, I have different paper on here, and it's when it's kind of a paper roulette thing. So I don't really know which kind is going to be on there. And I'm at this one, which is that one there, which is okay. And this is really thin. It's like the thinnest that's on here, I think, is 70 grams. This is about 90, and normally it's 130 with this one. For instance, this is the 130, and you can see it's cream rather than it being white. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. What matters is that you draw. That's all that matters. So, so I'm just trying to get the things in place. What I want is the shoulder. So I'm after the shoulder. So I'm wanting that to be part of the plan, if you like. Because I'm wanting this down to here and then down to there like that. So I'm wanting that. It's like that doesn't even look like anything that does it. So this plan thing, the mapping it out stage is it's often a the briefest of scribbles. I think what I'm doing more than anything, and I talk about the dots, I know, but what I'm doing anything is doing exactly that. I'm just looking for these anchors, you know, the dots or the marks or whatever, however you want to make those, or, you know, define those anchors. Use whatever you want, but that's initially what I'm doing. So I'm looking for specific things. They're not the same every time. It's different every time. So. Which it would be, because it's a different face and a different angle and a different, you know, everything's different about it. So it would naturally be different every time. That's a new piece of charcoal as well. So, which again is a weird thing, because I get used to using one piece, which was at the end of last night. That was that piece. So that one piece did all 5-6 drawings yesterday. And when it's dark, it's going to wear down pretty quick, obviously. So it's funny. A new piece of charcoal is you kind of have to get used to it, and it shouldn't be like that, really. You know, if you're using this, it should just be the same every time, shouldn't it? You know, that kind of stuff. You can see, I mean, they're all different sizes, but it's going to be uniform and feel exactly the same every time you use it and all the rest of it. And it's not with the homemade stuff. It's not. You kind of get a different feel for it. It's to do. I think it's partly to do with the shape of it. You know, you get used to the thing in your hand. There's lumps and bumps on it, and it has a different. You know, because it's not straight. It has a different kind of. Thrust, if you like, or a different, because what happens is that, and this is interesting as well, when if it's straight like that and I've got a point to it, if because it's curved, as if I turn it that way, there's less of a point and I'm more flat to the paper. So this one piece has kind of a sharp pointed end and a flat coverage end, and that's as I say, a thing that I've noticed. I'm doing it now, you see, for a fatter. So it's like this one piece that's doing different things. So it's flatter at that side, and I want to cover a bit more of the. So I'm just looking for my alignments. I just want to cover a bit more. So what I'm doing now, look, I'm looking for that where that the hair sort of sticks out there. And then, of course, then the ear just comes a little bit lower than that. You can hear Pablo the cat at the door, by the way. And he only wants biscuits, so it's not coming in. It'll just be, as I said before, they'll be clanging on the computer and sending emails. But yeah, so that is interesting about it. You know, first of all, you've got to get used to it, and secondly, then you kind of. No, I think it's gone now. No. As I say, you've got that few moments when I do get used to it, and I can feel that the charcoal is now aware of what it can do. That is a thing. I think it's because the marks are, as I'm working through it, you know, going through the gears, the marks are getting more and more focused and familiar, and I can feel that happening because of the because I'm getting used to the using the charcoal. When I stop like that, I'm just checking that I've got the distances right and the alignments right. That's why I'm stopping. If I just suddenly stop like that, that's what I'm doing, because just to double check the I'm doing it now, for instance. One of the things that I know I do is I'm flashing backwards and forwards with my eyes, and I'm trying to transpose what I see onto the paper. So it is literally like the animators do. It is literally like flashing backwards and forwards. I mean, the same time I'm doing that, I'm looking for the corner of his nose. I'm looking for the bridge of his nose. I'm looking for this angle there. I'm doing all that at the same time as trying to visually transpose it. But it's all happening at that, in that split second, and it's to do with the glancing backwards and forwards thing. It's not a it's not a literal measurement thing. It's to do with as I said, it's like the animators do. It's that's happening, and I don't think without the right, if you didn't have the right setup, I don't think you'd be able to do it like that. You're going to always be. The worst one is working flat to vertical, or working vertical to flat. Those are the hard scenarios. If you're going to draw something like that, you've already got an obstacle that you need to overcome, which is this transposition from vertical to horizontal. So the easiest way to get around that is work horizontal to horizontal. So you're never going to be having to mentally convert from the vertical to the horizontal. That's always going to be, when you're drawing your knee and all that sort of thing. It's really difficult, that. And ultimately you can do that, but it takes a lot of practice. And I would rather start easy and then get to the difficult bit. The bit that says, as I say, you've got to transpose this. There's times, I suppose, when you can't help but be in that situation where you have to do it that way. But I think make it easy to start with, before you get too complicated with it. So the charcoal's now settling in. It makes a different sound when it gets. So I don't know whether when it gets into the proper wood, that there is some kind of change in the density, because when it was burnt, it must be, when it was cooked in the furnace, the ends must harden as the side must harden. So whether or not when it gets past these ends so far in that it gets, and I can feel it's more of a silky feel now to it. So I don't know. I just know you can see it's working now. The number one thing is making marks with no effort. So I'm not really pressing onto this. I don't want to be in that, forcing the mark to be, for it to make a mark. I don't want to do that, because it will just stop me from, sort of a more flowing kind of feel with the marks. tidy that up with the ear in a minute when I've got past the general position of things, which is about right. A little bit short in the face. I think it's that bit. So I'm going to bring that in a bit just there to like there, and then into the chin like that. Yeah, and then as I said, I wanted to put the shoulder onto it. So I'm just going to put the see, this is, you can see this now where this makes these really dark marks. It just sort of steps up a gear to make the really dark marks. That's the beauty of this kind of when you get a decent piece of charcoal like this, that's the beauty of it. It's not a swap to a different piece to make it darker or whatever. This stuff will do everything. So I'm doing the tonal side of it at the same time as I'm drawing the components really. So I'm not going to want to come back and I might come back and just clean up that and put some of the highlights back in here, and then just sort out this there's not too many shiny highlights on it. It's definitely getting lighter there, but it doesn't need to be. White highlights, not all of them anyway. It just the bits that need, like this, need emphasizing there, and it's slightly lighter there, for instance, but it's not white. It's definitely got that highlight there, and this is not either. But yeah, let's say the beauty of something like this, and with the right charcoal, and I've got it's kind of flattened off anyway. One of the things I never really sharpen the charcoal unless it's something I feel I need to, it's got lettering on the side of his on his arm there. It says dead. I think it's a Hell's Angel guy. It is dead. It says dead something anyway. Don't know what else it's got on there. Some kind of anyway, a bit of fun. Yeah, so that's kind of one of the things of I talk about the tones with no effort thing. This is creating without sort of getting into blending and all the rest of it. This is creating a shape, tonal shapes. And that's what the big problem now is, this side of his face not being in too much of a highlight. It doesn't until you get the sort of the tones, because this is about the balance again of those two tones. So until this is properly managed, so what I'm doing now is I'm just checking this distance here, from here to the top of his eye there, because the eye needs to be a little bit more. Now I've got things where they should be. It needs to be a little bit more defined. You know, the shape here, because this is just a shape. There's very little in the way of. There's a tiny little lighter piece under his eye, but the rest of it, and then obviously the brow bit, but the rest of it is just suggestion and implication. This eye, for instance, is just a dark shape. There's no definition there at all. So the shape you're looking at there is that shape. If you want to put slightly lighter tones in it in some way, the viewer will see that, and they'll complete the picture. So you don't really have to get too bogged down with exactness of the eye in there. There's highlight there after the cheek, after the lip. There's highlight there, but it's not a proper highlight. So it needs to come back in again. It can't just be because it's pushing the shape of the face in a different direction just at that point. So it needs to come back in. Just to give it an edge on that. There's not enough. You know, I talk about the suggestion, implication, or the lost edges type of stuff. If you're going to use lost edges, say for instance in there, the trajectory of the chin has to imply, it's the same as the trajectory of that side of the lip, has to imply a connection, a follow through, in order for the viewer then to complete the picture. If it's not accurate, it doesn't work. And in some cases like this, it doesn't want leaving out. The highlight's not enough to burn out the edge of that chin. So now we'll fix the ear as well while we're at it. One of the downsides to this paper is that it's very susceptible to grease from my finger. So if I put any grease on it, it's difficult to draw over the top of it. So I'm going to be very wary of that. So the other one is the top of his lip there. Yeah. I suppose the angle of that highlight on his bottom lip there is critical to the overall feel of it. And then I think the other thing that I would work on more now that things are sort of in the right place, I think I'd work on or I will work on the hair, just to get it more solid. Rubber's not really working that well this morning. Probably a bit early for it to be. I had a hard day yesterday. Time to change, I think. It's feeling a bit gritty, you know, when it's when you see it's getting there. You can see how it's sort of, I mean, some cheaper ones don't do it anyway, but when it starts to get full of charcoal, it's no longer got elasticity in it, and I can feel that's what's happening. It hasn't got that, in order for it to act like a rubber. But as they get towards the end, that's what happens. They get really dark, and you can't make it lighter. Some of them you can keep doing that, and it gets lighter. But it's very near its end of life, end of usefulness. And I don't know whether you can do anything with them. I don't know. I suppose you could recycle them in some way. I have no idea. Never really thought about it. The thing about when they get older like that, they tend to be more of a sort of tonal smudging thing rather than a rubber. Never really wanted them to be making light marks anyway. They're not, because the problem is with the rubber, and you'll see people use them as well. Some of them really. The problem is with a rubber is that it's not accurate. You're always going to get a little bit of sort of floppiness about them. I'll try and do that. The first marks are going to be there, but the second marks afterwards are going to, which is good for hair, because what happens is it tends to fade off towards the end. And that's exactly what you want. Hair is going to do that. It's going to have a highlight on the top of the stroke, on the where the pinnacle of the stroke, and then the beginning and end wants to fade out. So it's probably why good to use a rubber that will do that. I think it's one of those things, you get too precious about doing it that way, or using a rubber that will only do this, then it's the slippery slope towards tool dependency thing. I can't do it because, and half the time when you make marks that aren't quite what they should be, they're often better than what they should be, because they're not too contrived or too deliberate. They lose that. They've still got that freshness, still got that drawn quality, which is what you always want, the drawn quality. You don't want the thing to look like it's a photograph that you've just blended within an inch of its life, because that's, it's pointless, isn't it? You just might as well take a photograph, especially when you're working from photographs. That's a kind of a contradiction in terms, you're just making an exact copy of probably a very good photograph. That doesn't seem to make sense somehow, does it? Definitely one of those situations with his hair of it being to imply the nature of the style, the way the hair has been blown in the wind. It's to imply that that's happening. It's not really a case of trying to copy every one of the curls or the strands of hair. You've got to give the feeling of it, really. Apart from doing the just watching the tones, you see how the tones are slightly darker here and then up onto his cheek there, just to give that a little bit more of a shape. The rest of it can stay. I'm going to get rid of that. It's a bit too. I don't mind the odd highlight leak, but I think it needs to be a little bit more, and the moustache needs to move a little bit further. Looking at alignments now of things, so taking the corner of the eye there, that will go to that part of his beard that's not properly shaved, that bit there, the raggy bit of his beard, and then looking at the angle of the corner of his moustache, which is basically from his nostril on that side. It's coming up to there like that. Yeah. So it's really at that stage where I'm adjusting all the tones and getting because it's still drawing, but I'm drawing more with even more with the tones at this point. I'm just trying to get everything to balance properly. Yeah. Just a little bit dark on there. You see how that's sometimes the problem. You'll get a build-up of charcoal and it'll create an unfamiliar density that's not familiar with the other tones. And this is why sometimes I'll be blowing it off, because I don't want charcoal to build up, left behind. As I'm doing that kind of thing, there are areas like there's a build up of charcoal. Can't really see it on screen, and it's down there as well. So really you want to be blowing it off, otherwise when you work over it, I don't mind sometimes, and it brings a different kind of depth of the density. But when it's too dark, if it's left behind, it just creates a unnatural density to it, as an unfamiliar density, unfamiliar with the rest of the tones, and it can also, some papers, this probably is not a great paper, but some papers you'll end up with a kind of a patchiness about it, a black patchy feeling about it. But anyway, yeah, apart from the sort in the ear and maybe a little bit more in terms of the direction, even though there's little or no detail in that eye, it's still implying a trajectory for the glance. So there might be a bit of that I'll do to it, but not much else. And just clean this up a little bit better, so it's not so. And then there's the highlighter. I don't know whether or not I'm going to bother with the this highlight here, because there's some of the the marks that are in there, I think are there's still a bit, so that's doing that density thing there, too dense, too dark. It's like I was saying the other day, though, this process goes quick, and then slow. And then but the main thing is, in the first instance, to get that, nail down that likeness, nail down that the location of things, and then you can refine it. It's kind of a reverse drawing. It's weird. And it's probably why it's so rapid, because you get to a point where your likeness is being established pretty quick and pretty early on in the drawing, and then the rest of it then is just the because the refinement of the shapes and the detail, if there is any, if you want to put any detail in. Sometimes that initial start, that rapid start, eliminates the need for detail, because you suddenly realize that it's not the detail that's going to tell the story. And yeah, as I say, apart from that being a little bit of a niggly thing, which is, you can see it's throwing a great big dark mark into his side of his face there. I mean, it actually looks like that on the you know, on the image, kind of a sort of raggy beard that's not. He's not bothered to shave it, but I don't know. It looks a little bit too. I think it's probably because this bit is not dark enough. It could be that's making it stand out too much. You can easily fix that. It's also the shape of it as well, I think. This is where the rubber that's near the end of its life is useful, because it's not going to rub anything out, but it's going to help me to manage these tones a lot better. And it's a lot more accurate than my finger. Yeah. Because the other one then is, I'm going to try and do it with this, is that. Yep, that'll do it. Yeah. Strange how you can just make a mark like that, and suddenly the frown and the squint changes. There are things like this where there's some kind of unnecessary texture or tone or whatever, the mark making it. Whether or not I do anything with that, whether I which I'm doing sometimes, and I'll leave those things in. It's just I don't know. It's part of the evolution of the drawing, and part of its journey. And I'll often leave those things in. Some things that aren't obvious as to why they'll be there, but for me, they're just part of the the evolution of the drawing. So I like to leave those in. Yeah. So I'm going to leave it at that. It's going to call it done. Still think this bit here needs a little bit more in terms of the shape of things, as it comes down there. But not much. You can see now it's there. Not much, just a bit more there, just to adjust that. I'm not sure why there's a highlight there, but again, it may be one of those things that are the leftovers from its evolution. Not sure it's going to be light in there either, so I'll take that out. Yeah. Probably do a little bit more care on the hair, but other than that, it's done. Right. Yeah, looks all right. I quite like the jacket.